Hello there, this is MD with you here on GebZilla. In this video where we look at all the liquify tools in Illustrator, we're gonna take text and we're gonna make it all drippy and droopy. We're gonna make it explode. Kind of crystallize. We're gonna twirl it. More exploding. Make it pucker. Make it bloat. More wiggling. And then there are only 7 tools. So this guy doesn't do anything. But the rest of them are pretty cool. Let's learn how to do that now in Adobe Illustrator. To get started, you can open up just a plain old document. I'm opening up a document from the exercise files called Liquify. There you are. Click open. The reason you can it's just a blank document. But I wanted to put this kind of gray to gray gradient in the background. For no good reason. It just kind of looks nice. Alright. So we're gonna use type to do like you saw at the beginning there. So we're gonna grab our type tool. We're gonna click once to get our point type box. We're gonna type in our name. I'm GebZilla. Or MD. So I've typed in my name. I've gone back to my black arrow. Just thought I'd have it. And I'm gonna pick a font and a color and a size. So you do the same, and I'm gonna use Dancing Minotaur. It is from Defont. And you can go and download that. And I'm going to bump the size up to something like. That works for me. In terms of the fill color, I'm gonna pick just the color off-white to go with my gray, moody background. Alright. We need enough space cause I've given you a nice long document here. It doesn't matter what size it is. But I wanna put 8 of these in here. So 1, 2, I'm gonna kind of stick them next to each other. So, once you get here, I can kind of guess. So pick a font size that works so you can put a bunch of them on the page. Alright. For this to work, what we need to do, we need to do something called outlining the text. Because this at the moment is editable text. We can't destroy it as you saw at the beginning without the kind of breaking it apart. So the good thing is we get to use our liquify tools. The problem is we can't change the spelling or the font of the size afterward. So we need to break it apart. A really good habit to get into is to copy and paste it and just have a version up here for later on. Because it'll be months. And you'll come back and be like, yeah, what was that font? You'll be like, I have no idea. Because once you've broken it apart it won't tell you. So it's just handy to have over there. So this version is here. With it selected. With my black arrow go up to type. And there's one in here that says create outlines. And watch what happens to it. Just kind of. Nothing really changes. Except now. If I zoom inches it's no longer edible text. It's telling me it's not lust. Still looks the same. But I can't double click with my type tool. And try to go into it to change it. Where did we end up? Remember this from the beginning. We are lost. Things have gone weird. We're in something called isolation mode. Remember. Click the arrow a couple of times to come back out. Cause at the moment, by default, it's all grouped. So if you double click it, you're insight into that group. Alright. Let's move on to the liquify tools. Actually, we can't. Not just yet. We need a few duplicates. So I'm going to copy and paste it. And just kind of line it up and try and get 4 across the top and 4 across the bottom. So we've broken it apart. I'm gonna use my trick. Where I'm dragging with my black arrow. And I'm holding Alt down on a PC or Option on a Mac. And just trying to get all of these. So what I might do is I've got loads to practice on. So select this guy. Zoom inches, select them all over here. I'm gonna pop this little triple dot open and go in here and say, I want to distribute them horizontally. Then I'm gonna drag out another copy. Now, liquify tools are in this kind of group here. The one on top's called the width tool. Click and hold him down, and we want to start with the warp tool. And by default, I'm not sure your brush size is going to be the same as mine. So I'll show you how to change that before we get going, cause the brush size is quite important. To change the brush sizes, like we did with the pencil tool. Change the pencil tool. Does anybody remember how we changed the smoothness and fidelity and stuff? Remember, you double click it, and we get our warp tool options, and width and height. Let's just put in 50 points high, 50 points wide, so you deal with the width and intensity. Don't worry too much about anything else in here. It's the size because for some reason you have to do the width and the height separately. But the intensity is quite important. That'll make a bit more sense as we go along. So let's click OK. I've got a size about this. I've got it selected. So my black arrow. Got it selected. Go to my warp tool. Right. Your warp tool. And it does this. So this one here. We're gonna do this kind of dripping, melting text thing. So you can see it's quite cool. Love it. Liquify. I'm just kind of clicking and dragging across it. Drippy text. Very cool. So I want to go over it with one kind of versional pass. And then I'm gonna go through, maybe, with a smaller brush. Remember, double click the warp tool. And go in here and I'm gonna go 20 by 20. Click OK. I'm gonna zoom in a bit. And do some micro blobs within these bits cause I want it kind of looks like it's dripping. Kind of dragging it out so I get a line and then kind of dragging it down. Totally illegible name now. I love it. Though. Alright. I'm gonna leave it there. And I move on to the next tool. I'm gonna grab the ellipse tool and do a little drip hanging off the bottom. Maybe I can put a little. Alright. That's for the warp tool. Cool. So we've done it with text. You can do it with any sort of drawing you've done. Remember, our penguin from earlier on. You can open him up and make him melt in the sun. But let's look at some of the other liquify tools. So I'm gonna have this one selected with my black arrow. Click and hold down. And we're gonna work our way through all of them. And let me show you these next two at least. And all the rest you could probably. Once you've kind of worked out the basics, you can go and do your own. We'll do them all together. But let's look at the twirl tool. Now, the twirl tool. Let's double click it. And let's turn our brush size back up. I'm just picking 40. You don't have to pick my sizes. You might have a different sized font. You can adjust this intensity. Though, if I leave it at 50, watch this. It goes. And it goes quite fast. So if I like to, you can add your own sound effects in there. So under intensity, I'm gonna turn it down. Say, 20%. Just so that when it's twirling it's not going so fast. Cool. You can kind of see what we're gonna do. Right? I'm gonna grab this. I think that's already quite twirled. And drag it out like this. And you get this kind of cool twirling thing going on. Or I'm gonna try to get this end down the bottom here. Watch this. If I click it once and just hold, I get a twirl. But if I click hold and drag it, it kind of starts looping back on itself. And you can move it around and just kind of mix it up. I don't know. It's getting quite complicated. See all the little blue dots? Those are anchor points. And there's just to make that curve work. There are so many needed. So stretching my machine out a little bit. If you're working on a really old, slow machine, yours is probably gonna freak out a little bit. But hopefully not. It's clearly eligible but very cool. Look at that. I like that. It was good for a second. Now, hang on. Look at that. That's cool. I'm gonna click my black arrow. Click in the background to get a good sense of it. You can see some cool stuff you can do. Now, we're doing with type again. Illustrations. The shape you've drawn. Super cool. And it's like on this guy with a black arrow. Then we'll look at one more. We'll look at pucker. So pucker and bloat. One makes it smaller and one makes it bigger. So these kinds of things go hand in hand. And let's have a little look. I'm gonna make the brush size bigger. If I click on it, it sucks into the center, but the intensity is probably a little too strong. So double click it, and for some reason, even down at 20%, this tool needs to be down to 2%. I'm not sure who decided how the intensity will work, but sometimes 50%, sometimes 20%, sometimes 2%. So I need to play around with it. So I'm gonna click on this. I'm just clicking once with my mouse. If you click and hold, it works. That's kind of cool. It's a different kind of font now, but so awesome. I'm gonna stay right in the middle of this stuff and go. We're awesome. So that is the pucker. This last one is here. You can imagine what the bloat tool does. So you can just skip on it and just stop playing with it yourself now. I'm gonna go through them all just so you get an idea of how I use it at least. I like to kind of click in some of these. I use the target right in the center to kind of blob out bits. Still pretty cool. Right in the center of that. Not my best. Yep. So let's have a look at some of the other ones. It is all about experimenting, right? So scallop, crystallize, and wrinkle. And actually, I've said you had to have it selected. I always assumed you did. All end up not looking the exact same, but they crinkle the edges. But they work slightly different ways. Scallop kind of drags it on itself, so it's kind of blasting inwards. And then say crystallize does the opposite and kind of blast it out. We'll experiment with different ones. It's actually easier. We're all learning. You don't actually have to have it selected. And it's actually a little easier to work with when it's not selected. You don't see all the blue lines everywhere. So crystallize explodes out. Scallop goes in on itself. And then wrinkle just kind of makes the edges wrinkly. It does a bit of both. So you gotta kind of give this one a wiggle around. And I might have to turn the intensity up on this one. You were like, that doesn't do anything then. Intensity at 2 is not so good. Let's go up to 20. And you can see it's wrinkling the edges. So it's going a bit of both. Not as sharp. Alright. My friend is a Liquify Tools. We will see you in the very next video where we look at something similar. We're gonna bend and warp type rather than this kind of more liquify stuff. I'll show you what I mean in the very next video. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching. MD was with you here on GebZilla.